guys, welcome back to the channel. Today is going to be a little bit of a different book review because it's not actually reviewing a book. I have not read a book. I mean, I've read books, but specifically for this video, I've not read a book. Rather, I am writing one at the moment, hence why this is a synopsis video instead. Now, basically, a couple of things we gotta understand first. First and foremost, the major arcana in tarot, there's 22 cards there, and they spell out what is known as the Fool's Journey, hence why the very first in the normally designated as 0 is the Fool. Now if we designate it as chapter 0 or prologue, then we can quite easily turn the rest of them into one chapter each, giving us a total of 21 chapters. Now how do we fit minor arcana into that? I'm about to tell you, because that's exactly what I'm doing. As you can see here, that's 22 cards, in case we're wondering. But the second card is not the Magician, as you might think it is. It is instead the Ace of Cups for this one, followed by the rest of the suit of cups thereafter, until we get down to the Court cards, which right after that is the Devil, is where we've made our incision. Now, the reason why this works kind of really well is because, start off with, the Fool in its upright position is a free spirit, purity, and beginnings, the beginning of each book. And then by the time we get to the Devil card, where we sort of resume the rest of the Fool's Journey, even with the minor arcana making up the other 14 before that, it's upside down, it's reversed one, at least in this edition, is awareness, breaking free, and empowerment over things like enslavement, fears, and addiction. But if we look at it a little bit more literally, breaking free from the devil itself, or like the villain, set all the way back here it's giving us, as we can see, 15. So by chapter 15 out of 22, we should be trying to fight our villain by then. If you look at a beat sheet, you can literally look up the Blake Snyder beat sheet online and find the image for it. But it breaks the beats of a movie down, and it has little numbers in brackets next to it, which, if you've got the actual book like I do, it actually explains what those numbers are. Those are page numbers for a script, and it takes you all the way to your final image being on page 110, which is quite easily divisible by 22. It goes 5 times, meaning that each card would represent 5 pages in a feature film, which also helps for writing out a synopsis. So that's what I did. That's what I started off with. Okay, well, what are the key words? What's the character involved? You know, like looking at the Princess of Cups, or we're looking at the Star, the Tower. This might be a location that, you know, occupies that particular chapter. Obviously, we've got our Devil card, and then we'll get into the actual major arcana itself. There's like the Hermit, there's the Chariot, there's the Magician, Priestess, the Empress, the Emperor, There's things like the Strength card, which usually has a tiger on it. There's the Hermit. There's the Wheel of Fortune, and they're all sort of right next to each other, which kind of seems like it might be some sort of like fun fair maybe. You know, you've got the tigers in the circus. The Hermit could just be the mystic off to the side, sort of out of the way of everyone else, so that they can concentrate on seeing into the beyond. Your Wheel of Fortunes, the games down in the fun fair part of it. Like, it sounds like it could be some sort of a carnival going on there. There's obviously death itself, which you can give as the actual like Grim Reaper of death. So there's a whole bunch of characters that you can make out of that. But the other thing, and this is how I've been able to sort of fill in this particular world, the other thing is that the suits themselves, cups, stones, or coins, but cups, stones, swords, and rods, if we call them that for the moment, instead of like wands or pentacles or whatever, then the cups can easily become the cauldron of knowledge, which is owned by the Celtic god, the Dagda. He is the leader of the Tuatha Dé Danann. The stone can become the Stone of Fal, which in a couple of the versions of the myths is actually the stone that the god Ogma first wrote the Ulm script on in order to give, you know, language essentially to humans. There's Cleve Solace, which is the Sword of Light, which kind of does like a whole, like, you know, gives Sting vibes, like it glows. It's usually wielded by Nuada, and is one of the symbols of his divine right to rule as king of the Tuatha Dé Danann. And then the rod would become the Spear of Lu, which gives off Elder Wand vibes in that the person who holds it is basically guaranteed victory. If he was to throw the spear, no shield is going to stop it. It'll pierce straight through the shield into your heart or whatever. Yeah, so we can translate them that way as well, which then obviously means that we're looking at Celtic mythology, so we can then bring in some of their other things like banshees, leprechaun. We could look at the Dullahan, Abatak. There's a whole heap of other ones. You could look at Kelpies and stuff. And then they also all relate to an element as well. So cups is water, so in this case we could be looking at, you know, an undersea, you know, like a submerged city, sort of Atlantis vibe going on at some point. Maybe that's what the tower is in this case. There are obviously some things that I haven't worked out for the synopsis, but that's what we're looking at. There's a whole bunch of inspirations going into this. So the story itself would start off with our Fool, and then it's going to jump to the Suit of Cups for the Cup of Ancient Wisdom. So starting off with our keywords, and I was using this version, the Mystic Mondays, because it's got the keywords. Was using it. However, now that I've got my Threads of Fate as well, I know that its book also has keywords. So I might do, next month, I might do a sort of part 2 sort of thing to this video. And I'll see what the Weaver Tarot keywords and how that would change the story. We'll see. But essentially we're starting off here. Our first time we meet our character, he is a free spirit. He's very pure. He's he's about to set off on his adventure, and because he has no prior knowledge, he's also foolish, careless, and a bit naive. From there, we then dive into our Ace of Cups. Alright, this is where you can see his creativity, his emotional expression. He's sort of still free-flowing, but as we sort of progress toward the end of that chapter, we sort of get this sense that he's sort of repressing something. There's a bit of emotional exhaustion, and he needs to release something. That's where we then come to our next chapter, where he partners up. They've got some complementary traits, sort of a very fast friend sort of thing, and that duality as well, like the whole like system of like duality and balanced stuff comes into it. However, there is also a bit of a breakup, a clash, and a disconnect. Now, for the purpose of this particular story, we can't have a partnership and a disconnect and a breakup all in one chapter when we're literally, second chapter, maybe third chapter in, depending on if I make the full its own chapter. So like we're still meeting characters, so we can't split characters up here. So that breakup and that clash, that disconnect is going to be internal from the point of view character, in sort of a continuation of that release of that repression. That's going to be what sort of breaks. There'll be a clash between trying to, sort of judge this new character for who they are, while also dealing with their own issues. So already getting a little bit of that emotional sense in here. By the end of that chapter, something will have gone right, because in chapter 3 they'll be celebrating. They'll be sort of fully connecting with the community, etc., etc. Now, the partnership in number 2 is going to be given to our point of view character, our protagonist, by the gods who in this series, because obviously I can make 5 books out of it, each suit, and then the major arcana is the 5th one. But in this particular world, the gods actually exist. They can manipulate, the natural elements, so that the god of the sea does actually control the seas and all that is within it. The god of thunder can generate and shoot electricity from their hands. Like those sorts of things. And so there's going to be the sort of the naming of a champion sort of thing. He's going to be part of that partnership, but they're going to come in and meet sort of all of these other like champions of the other gods, where they're then going to basically get told like, hey, look, like it's been 1,000 years or whatever since we locked this particular entity away. Since then, humans and their like devotion to us has sort of slipped, because we've come into peace times and there's been no need to like rely on the gods to keep us safe, because we are. So we're gonna like give you guys just a taste of our holy power so you can go and lock them away. You're gonna be like the new generation of gods, because it's gonna need to be like, you need to do this. However, in order to do so, these things need to be these 4 treasures need to be collected and brought back to us, because they've been hidden away because we no longer needed them. We hid them away where mortals weren't going to be able to like abuse their powers, but now we need them again, so we need you to go get them. While we stay here and try to like fight off the monster as it tries to escape. So they'll meet that community of champions. And they'll sort of set all of their goals. But there's also going to be this sense of like, is our POV character just conforming to this new role and not really trying to be themselves? Are they just trying to, make everyone else happy because they don't know what's going to happen? The next chapter, they're a bit distracted, they're sort of withdrawn, there's some rumination going on, a little bit stubborn, some self-absorption going on. By the Four of Cups, by the chapter for Four of Cups, whether it's the 4th or the 5th, we'll have our like party for the whole series. So we'll have, our elf, our dwarf, our human, our wizard, our halfling, whatever it is, we will have them by this point. Except for the fact that they're all the wizard character as well, because they've all got a different elemental ability. So the self-absorption is going to be like, we're the new gods, so like we can do whatever we want, sort of thing. And the lost opportunities are going to come from, there'll be a couple of examples in this particular chapter where they could have jumped right ahead and just gone straight to the place they needed to, if only they'd paid a bit more attention, or not been not had that one particular character that's so conceited. Looking at the guy with the fire powers there. But yeah, so that's going to be sort of where that goes, and they're going to like lose out on a couple of opportunities for one reason or another. In 5 of Cups, disappointment, setback, perspective, forgiveness, emotional maturity, and recovery. So obviously, after missing out on some opportunities, there's a bit of disappointment, they've got their setbacks, they have to readjust their perspective, learn to forgive each other as they go along, grow in their emotional maturity, and then sort of recover and get back on track. The 6 of Cups is going to bring them to a familiar scene. They'll sort of feel like their innocence has come back to them a little bit, and sort of feel that nostalgia for the times before they were champions of the gods, sort of thing. But they're also going to have to, we've got rose-colored glasses here, and as soon as I saw that, with this same sort of like adventure, high fantasy sort of thing going on, I immediately started thinking of the scene in Percy Jackson, where they're in the Lotus Eater club in Las Vegas, because like they had like the ultimate rose glasses, but idealistic and childhood trauma, and this is where we're going to sort of start to find out like what is it that our POV character was repressing. 7 of Cups, illusion, prizes, temptation. Again, this sort of brings me into that whole, between that, rose-colored glasses making me think of the Lotus Eaters, and this now being illusions and prizes, that scene is now just like firmly set in my head, because illusions, the illusion of winning a big prize, is kind of what slot machines and gambling is all about. There's the illusion that you might win big, and therefore you need to be there to do so. But it's also fantasy escapism and diversions, which obviously they'll have to overcome in order to move forward. They'll get to the Eight of Cups. There'll be some introspection, some brooding, and they'll sort of discover their deeper purpose. Not as a whole, because we're only looking at minor arcanas, but for this particular quest to get the Cup of Ancient Wisdom, they will sense their deeper purpose. Then the group as a whole will be, there'll be some characters that are sort of avoiding things. There'll be some characters that are maybe paralyzed by whatever happened in the other 2 chapters before that. Still trying to figure out if there's a Celtic version of the Lotus Eaters that I can make these three chapters take after, but paralyzing is one of their words. And then indecision. So an indecision of what to do. Do we leave our paralyzed comrade behind and press forward, or do we see to their health and maybe get there too late? The Nine of Cups will give some wish fulfillment and some pleasures to our characters who have just undergone quite an ordeal on their adventure. But there'll also be a bit of an overindulgence, some impatience, and some unrealistic expectations, which I'm thinking might just be they'll air out that they had unrealistic expectations of what this quest was actually going to involve. Actually, I know exactly what my Lotus Eater is going to be. It's going to be Kelpies, but I'm going to use the Fantastic Beast versions where it's a horse of the sea that's made out of kelp. That sounds like it might be cool. Get some mermaids that eat kelpie. Interesting. Turn our banshees into sirens. They're both wailing women, right? Then our Ten of Cups brings us to the wholeness, the connection, the full circle, but also a bit of a broken family, disjointed and blocked intimacy. So all of our characters within the party are now not seeing eye to eye. None of them are seeing eye to eye, but we're following our particular POV character, and they feel a wholeness within themselves, a connection to themselves, and that they've sort of come full circle from where they were to being this new, better version of themselves. We then come into the Court of Cups. So the flow, synchronicity, mystic messages, but low tides, immaturity, and emotional instability is the princess. Low tides might literally be, since I said this might be in an Atlantis kind of setting, low tides might be a physical low tides, allowing this otherwise undersea city to essentially rise up again, and what implications that has for everyone else. The Knight of Cups, romantic, emotional relation, adoration. So we'll sort of finally come to sort of a climax for whatever our romantic story is before we get into the bulk of the climactic battle. So this is sort of our quick breather before the battle sort of thing. This is our safe zone for the romantic sort of love story, the beeline. But certain characters are going to be moody, there's going to be a bit of an emotional overload, and some of the characters are going to be a bit reactive to each other because, the whole broken family thing has just continued through. The Queen of Cups, intuition, compassion, open heart, restriction, delusion, over emotional. The income next. So our character is going to open up their heart to the fact that the way to truly unlock the cup of ancient wisdom and to fully utilize its powers is to open your heart to it and to pour out your emotions like water into it, and that that love is the true fountain of youth, or we'll get some this is going to be one chapter where the curtains are blue because he's depressed and not just because he liked blue. Similar to my lights, they're blue because I like blue, but also because we're talking about the suit of cups, which represents water. Water is represented by the colour blue. And then we come to our King of Cups, the last court card before we jump back into our Devil card. Equilibrium, mindfulness, humanity, but emotional abuse, toxic, low spirits. Now, this is going to sort of bring to a head when we jump back to the Devil card in the next chapter, that the main characters that are being affected by this demon are the ones who share an ability with it. Now, our demon's going to be based a bit on Hades from Greek mythology, but also a bit on, predominantly, on Balor of the Evil Eye from Celtic mythology. So, being that he's going to be essentially our god of the underworld, to which the Celtic god of the underworld, his name is Aed, which is where my name comes from. Sort of originally, might not have been my parents' inspiration, but it is like the historical, that is where it came from, sort of origin. What was I saying? So yeah, so that's, his name means fire, and he's the god of the dead. So, you know, shadow, fire, life, these are going to be the kinds of elements that are going to be sort of breaking up this family tree, so to speak. And so we're then going to have to fight our devil in the 15th chapter, maybe the 16th if Fool gets its own, where again they're going to fight their addictions, their enslavements, their fears. They'll become aware that, oh crap, this monster is real, this devil is real. They're going to break free of his influence, those that are being affected by him, and they'll sort of come into like a full empowerment. One of the characters is going to get their full powers in this, by like fully claiming the Cup of Ancient Wisdom. We then go into the Tower, which is all about destruction, change, avoidance, warning. Lightning's in here, so we may see our god of thunder appear, to sort of like as an actual god, who we there to sort of like distract the monster while the party escapes the tower. We then come to the Star, which is all about healing, inspiration, serenity. They're also going to feel a little uninspired. They're going to be left in the dark, feeling adrift, because there's going to be this abrupt change from like going through this underwater city, claiming this treasure that they needed, and having to face this, you know, maybe it might be a sea demon, I don't know. I just know that my overall bad guy is going to be Balor. Suddenly they're just left in the dark, feeling adrift, like, what do we do now? Like, do we take this back to, you know, like the Temple of the Gods? Do we continue on to the next objective? Like, where do we go from here? The next chapter is gonna sort of be, it's dealing a lot with like the subconscious and the shadow self. So I'm not sure if I might do like a maze of mirrors type thing, or if I'll just do like a dreamscape sort of thing, where we sort of go into the heart and the soul of our POV character who has, you know, the Cup of Ancient Wisdom, and sort of see them go up against their shadow self and like confront their true demon in order to come to a wholeness, to unlock all of the abilities of the cup itself. And so while they're doing that, obviously the other characters are going to feel a bit confused. There's going to be some mixed signals. Everything's going to be a bit hazy. It could even be that while they're trying to unlock this last part, that the cup itself sends them all into the dreamscape, where there's, you know, the light version and the shadow version of our POV character. We then come to the Sun, chapter 19. Positive vibes, warmth, radiance, but also lackluster, cloudy, and unrealistic. So, I mean, I know how the cloudy is going to come from the hazy. It's just going to clear up, it's going to be a nice day, but still some of those clouds hanging around. The unrealistic, I don't know how I'm going to get to. I still have to work out some kinks. Judgment is all about absolution, evaluation, reflection, doubts, self-judgment, and overcritical. So we'll have some characters being overly critical of themselves or of others. A lot of doubt within the group of, like, you know, because by now they'll have made up their minds of where to go. Some of them will still have their doubts and be still voicing those doubts. But overall, they'll all have, like, evaluated everything, made their decisions, and they'll actually start heading towards the next objective, which is the stone. And then we come to our last one, which is our completion, our achievement, and our unity with the world. So finally, with that unity there, they're back together as a strong core unit once more, on their final stretch. But there's one final impediment, one final hindrance, before they can fully sort of, at least for this quest, ride off into the sunset. So yeah, that's the synopsis. If you have watched this far and you've enjoyed it, thank you very much. Show how much you loved it by hitting that thumbs up button. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new here, and hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I upload new videos. Let me know in the comments down below if this sounds like a cool premise for a story. For me, it's just sort of like the culmination of my spiritual journey, because I've always had sort of a calling for the arts, particularly writing, and now with tarot cards and, like, my ancestry in you know, Ireland, Scotland, England, using the native mythology there. Yeah, let me know what you think in the comments down below, and until next time, guys, keep your head screwed on.